What if I told you the way you're thinking about reality may be limiting your experience of it? We are constantly shaping our world through concepts, labels, and mental constructs, often without realizing how they trap us. These thought patterns can become prisons, keeping us stuck in outdated perspectives. We're diving deep into the traps of mental constructs, the labels and concepts that keep you stuck in rigid thinking. If you've ever felt like your mind is working against your growth, stick around. By the end of this episode, you'll have the perspective shift to break free from many limiting beliefs and see real life through a whole new lens. So stick around, and I hope you enjoy. All right, what is up, everyone? Welcome into another episode of the Wizard Factory podcast, where together we explore deeper wisdom of the universe through ourselves. My name is Logan Hart, and this channel is all about giving you the spiritual tools and mindsets to live a more empowered, purposeful, and free life. So if that sounds good to you, drop down, hit the like button on your way in, and subscribe. Remember the tribe, and let's get into it. So today, I'm joined by my friend Mitch Wasson. So Mitch is a truth seeker who has spent at least the last 10 years studying the nature of reality and the nature of self, and is now someone who teaches what he's learned along the way through various forms of videos. So I'm very excited for this talk today, and we're going to be getting into a lot of really deep philosophical topics that I feel will add a lot of depth and dimension to the broader conversation when it comes to spirituality, natural law, and things of this nature. So without further ado, welcome Mitch to the show, brother. Great to have you on, man.
Yeah, great to be here, bro.
Yeah. So yeah, we're going to be talking about a few things, but we're going to start off with ironically, the concept of concepts, right? And sort of unpacking that a little bit. But before we do, let's just touch briefly on your personal background. What are some of the key fundamental like teachers and teachings that have brought you to where you are today, and how would you describe your spiritual perspective today?
Hmm. Yeah, good question. So I stumbled across esoteric knowledge or whatever you want to call it, philosophy and stuff about 12 years ago. I didn't actually really truly open my eyes until like 10 years ago. Um and that's it's kind of a tough question to answer honestly because I've read so much and obviously studied a lot, and ever since I remembered my interconnectedness to all, like society obviously programs us from birth to disconnect and to separate ourselves and look at ourselves and each other as separate, which obviously creates a lot of bad things, not only for ourselves but for the world in general. So 10 years ago, I had this pretty massive breakthrough experience where um, I truly felt and just knew, like beyond all mental constructs, beyond everything, what not only what I was, but what we all are. And I knew ever since then I was going to help other people realize this, but I had a lot of work to do, right? So it's just been an ongoing journey, acquiring knowledge, applying knowledge, and really talking about concepts, right? You acquire knowledge, you apply the knowledge, and then you kind of let the knowledge go. So it's like this process of, you're reading books, you're watching videos, you're, absorbing, but then you have to go and apply it. Because if you don't go apply it, then it just becomes concepts. Then it's just merely concepts.
Mm.
It's just knowledge that's stuck in your head. And yeah, you can say big words and you can regurgitate things that philosophers said and whatever, but you don't actually know it. You lack conviction because you're not it, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
So a pivotal philosopher, for example, regarding this concept is Jay Krishnamurti or Jiddu Krishnamurti. He was um, an incredible teacher regarding going beyond concepts, cutting out all external saviors, right? Religion, just looking to any kind of guide or guru or anybody outside of yourself for the answers. Of course, what are we doing here, right? We're helping teach people certain philosophies, certain, dynamics, certain concepts. But the most important thing about this entire journey is taking those concepts, applying the knowledge and seeing how it works in your life and seeing how it works, period. And then throwing it away and just living it. So you apply the knowledge and you're just remembering what you already are, basically. I feel that along my path, I realized that our physiology, our bodies, are what makes us us, are basically like warehouses of all the knowledge that exists in the universe, as crazy as that might sound. And so when we're reading books and we're going into this stuff, we're just unlocking that within us.
Hmm. Like the Akashic records and that sort of thing.
Yeah, that it ties into that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
part of it. Hmm.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a great introduction. And there's definitely a few things I'd like to say about the concept of concepts. So everything is about balance. I think a lot of people get kind of into one side or the other, just like with everything. People are horribly imbalanced and pushed into these dialectics at every turn. So some people are obsessed with concepts and they're so fixated on those that it detaches them from the actual experience and from the true reality and the true nature of a thing or something. But then people can be too detached, I think, where it's like to interface, to transact with concepts is unavoidable as a human being. Every
Yep.
word that I'm saying is a concept. Every letter that forms every word that I'm saying is a concept. And the idea that's attached to those sounds that are transferring from me to you, I mean, that's so fundamental to the human experience and the way that we interact with reality. So there's no getting around that. So I feel like just with lots of postmodernist ideas, it's very hypocritical or self-defeating in and of itself. So people that are just like, I don't like labels, I don't, this and that. And it's like, a label, the word label is a label, right? Your name is like everything. It's just that it's a useful tool. It's not synonymous with the thing. So like the word phone isn't actually my phone. It's just a pointer. It's a signpost that's transferring that idea through communication. So use it for what it is, but don't confuse the label or the concept, the idea of it for the thing itself, especially with things that are more natural, right? Sure, words are more man-made anyways, so they're a little more subjective and just kind of malleable to whatever we make them into. But something like walking through the forest, like you might have all these ideas about what if there's a bear or there's all these insects or what if I get lost or whatever, and those are all concepts that you've associated with this idea of walking through the forest that are actually keeping you from just having that experience, to just actually being there with your feet on the ground and taking in all the sounds and sights and smells of that. And that, I think, is really where it's important to stress this, because you want to keep you want to stay present and actually tapped into reality, and words and concepts and labels and boxes and all of that. They're useful, but they have the potential to be a deterrent or like a false proxy. It's almost like w- having a VR headset and walking through the forest instead of actually walking through the forest. It's like you know what I mean? It's like it's a mental construct basically as a proxy for the real thing.
Yeah, yeah, and exactly. It gets really dangerous when you are separating yourself from one another and you're turning everything into something that it's not. As soon as we meet somebody, we say, "What?" We ask, "What's your name? What's your occupation?" Right? Because we're starting to throw them in a box that they don't actually belong in,
Yeah.
but we do it to ourselves. So we live through that box. So we want to immediately shove other people into that box as well. And it's sinister is what it is because it's like you're no longer interacting with life. You're interacting with, well, a concept. You're interacting with an idea, a word, and a bunch of words that you have constructed and thrown onto life itself. Like a tree, for example, right? Like you said, the phone isn't a phone. A tree isn't a tree. Well, the question is, what is it? What is it beyond the word that we have prescribed this living entity? And those are concepts too, right? But we're getting closer to the mark there. We're getting closer to going into that realm beyond words to where that's when we're present, right? And we're walking through the forest as your example, you talked about in your example. Can we go through the forest with nothing blocking or nothing coming into our minds? And if things do come into our minds, great, but you're not feeding them, right? You're just present with what is.
Mm.
Murray talked about how thought is time, right? So past and future are just that thought is past and future. You can't think of anything new. You can't think of anything outside of the realm of what you've experienced in your life. Even the future, you think about the future, you can think about 10,000 years from the future, but that would come from the past.
Mhm.
So really, all thought is past, right? You can't think and be present at the same time. It's a really interesting exercise. You can't do it. As soon as you start thinking, you're entering time, right? But when you're present, like focusing on your breath, right? That's a classic anchor
Mhm.
that anybody can do. Just feeling your feet, feeling your hands, connecting with somebody or something in your environment. That's a good way to ground yourself. But so many people are so locked in the mind. And yes, the mind is life, mind is reality, but there's also realities beyond mind. And that's another whole can of worms that, we could open now or not, whatever. The most important thing here is I don't feel like enough people understand this, and that's why we talked about it, and I wanted to start with going to beyond concepts because we got the natural law community, we got the truth community, all bouncing concepts off of each other and going into different philosophies and esoteric knowledge, occult knowledge, understanding the dark and the light, which is all so important. But if it's just words in your brain, and you haven't realigned your actions with truth, truly,
Mm.
like living in integrity, living with true principles. I don't, you're not going to be perfect, right? But at the same time, if you weren't perfect, you wouldn't be here. If you think about that, right? If your body wasn't functioning perfectly, your lungs, your heart, the blood pH, your blood pH, all of those things, you would cease to exist as a human.
Yeah.
So
Like a relative perfect, not a
Oh,
well, the,
relative perfect.
well,
There can be obviously, tumors and growths, but still your body still has to be functioning on some level of perfection to be able to exist as a human on earth.
that's actually a great concept of concepts is the idea of perfection, whereas like there's the idea of perfection which is completely without flaws, which cannot exist in reality because reality is not just not built that way. But you can have the real version of perfection, which is essentially a negligible window of lack of flaw or you know malfunction, misfunction, whatever you want to call it. It's like if it's good enough that it's imperceptible to you, then
Mhm.
yes, at the microscopic, the molecular level or whatever, there's some flaw somewhere, but it's so close to perfection to you that it registers as perfect. Like, say, a figure skater that does this twirl and lands and is so graceful, and there's zero perception of like losing balance or wobbliness whatsoever. Sure, there was something somewhere in there in the nuance of it that was not 100% perfect, but it's pretty damn close. And that's the
Right.
reality of perfection, not the concept of perfection.
Right. Yeah. Right. Exactly. Perfection is it's interesting because most everybody will say, "Well, I'm not perfect," or "You're not perfect. Nobody's perfect." Right. That's the big "nobody's perfect" quote thing. And it's like we're all hypnotizing ourselves with this idea that we're not perfect. But there there's this rule of thumb that I've kind of lived by since I truly woke up, and it's if everybody's doing it, then you probably should question it or maybe even walk the other way, right? So if everybody's eating junk food, you might want to do the opposite. Or if everybody's, you know, I mean, obviously everybody has to do certain things as a human, okay? We all gotta take a piss. We all gotta eat food. We all gotta do certain things, right? I'm not talking about that though. I'm talking about ideologies. I'm talking about if most people are following this trend, if most people are subscribing to this narrative, you should probably question it. You should probably not even entertain it, right? Because it's probably deception. And so we can apply that to perfection. Everybody's saying nobody's perfect, nobody's perfect, nobody's perfect, but maybe that's because you are. And that sounds, I know, very egoic, very this, very that, because well, who does it sound egoic to? What who decides what's perfect? You do? Or what like I mean, I feel like that's a pretty subjective, you know,
Hmm.
what is perfect? The figure skater that does a backflip in the air and lands perfectly on one skate, and it's like there's no sign of imperfection. Somebody could find an imperfection, whereas most people would say it's perfect. Um, I'm just saying, I'm not saying that I believe that nobody's perfect, and I'm not saying that I believe everybody's perfect. I think that it's both, obviously.
Mhm.
Um, and if you understand, how the universe works, you'll realize extremes meet, right? Polarity, duality.
Yeah.
That's how the universe works. And like I said, that whole body concept, the concept that without your body and your blood, and yes, you can have a little bit higher pH or a little bit lower pH, your
There you
blood
go.
pressure.
It's a window, but it's a very
Yes,
narrow one.
your blood pressure could fluctuate, but your eyes are still going to work perfectly. Your brain may be a little bit foggy because you're, eating aluminum daily and you're just not taking care of yourself, but your body is still functioning optimally to be able to actually have this experience.
Mhm.
Because right when it goes over the edge of, like you're having a heart attack, that's when it starts to lack perfection, right? And
Right.
then
It's like
then what happens? Another perfect event happens. That heart attack is perfect, and it's perfect regard in regards to what you did and what actions you took to manifest or attract that. Or I don't want to say attract, but manifest that heart attack into your life, and then your death will be perfect, right? And then it's like
but it's
we can
perfect through natural law
right,
because every cause and well the consequential aspect is always perfect that is dealt from the input that was given. So natural law is working perfectly. But I
right,
also wanted to add too, because you were mentioning polarity. I think a really great way to describe this concept that you're talking about here is look at the full spectrum of possibility of you not existing and not being alive, right? Of all the planets, right? We're on the one that we even know of in the observable universe that can even sustain life. And then you ended up a human being. You've got all your limbs, like all of these things are like miracles on each one of them, and then they're all stacked on top of each other. So even if you've got a knee that clicks and this and that, those imperfections are so negligible compared to the huge spectrum of things that could be wrong with you, or to even like being unhealthy is a super sliver compared to you not even existing or have ever
boom,
been um uh, incarnated. So
yeah,
yeah,
Exactly.
That's fascinating to think about. Before I forget, there's another thing that I wanted to add in too. There's this sort of thought experiment that I like to do to play with this idea of concept, and it's like looking at the qualitative versus the quantitative as a definitional aspect to something, right? So when I say there's a car, okay, you have this image pop into your mind. You know what a car is. It's one word, and pretty much every human alive now knows what that means, okay?
Mm.
And we know what a car is. Like you see them every day. You drive one probably, and
But do you?
but yet
No, go ahead. Yeah.
but yet, how many pieces of the car can we take away before it's not a car anymore? That's the fun part. If you take the wheels off, well, yeah, it's still a car. It's just a car without wheels, right? But as you continue to remove parts, it goes there's no just magic line it crosses where it transfers from being a car to being a pile of junk, but it
Yeah.
happens somewhere. And the somewhere is in the concept. This idea of car is actually just bunch of parts welded together that
Yes.
has a function that transports people around and stuff. But then you have like a truck is like a car, but it's a truck because it's just shaped slightly different, And so there's all these, what color is it? Like there's all these little variations to just this general, super broad, generic idea of car. So that's
Yeah.
something you can really play with and see all of the variability within just that one concept that everybody can relate to. Hey guys, just wanted to take a quick moment to offer you a special gift. It's the initiation package. I created this to equip you with all the essential tools you need for your daily metaphysical practice, or anyone serious about their spiritual development. This is a free download that includes the Toolbox mini course. It's comprised of 3 parts: the circle, the breath, and the voice. You'll learn how to cast the circle of the Magi, various breathwork techniques, including a powerful guided breath meditation and 2 magical invocations. You'll also get access to the Inner Sanctum, our private community, where you can connect with other like-minded truth seekers, the Wizard Factory weekly newsletter, as well as some custom Wizard Factory wallpapers for desktop and mobile, all for free. This is my way of helping you lay a solid foundation, so don't miss out. Get access now and take the first step on your path. You can find the link to get yours in the description below. So check it out and let's get back to the content.
Yeah. That's a pretty awesome exercise that anybody can do because it's like, yeah, like you said, the car doesn't when you take the engine out, is it a car still? Well,
Uh-huh.
yeah, no, it's a car without an engine, but a car is made up of wheels. A car is made up of an engine. So, do we have a word that describes a car without an engine? Oh yeah, it's a car without an engine, but that's not a word. That's a sentence.
Yeah.
It's like I was listening to Alan Watts years ago, and he was talking about how you it was a snowy day. Like you go outside, in the morning, and there's 6 inches of snow. And what's the word that we attach to the top of the snow? And then the middle of the snow, right? Or what's the word that we attach to how the snow looks on it's like there's so many concepts that you i- this exercise that Watts is getting into is literally attempting to help you break out of concepts. That's
Mm.
why koans exist. That's why in Zen they use koans, right? What is the sound of one hand clapping? It's a
Mm.
perfect that's example of a koan. It's designed to break you out of concepts and into, you could say, consciousness, or what we are, which is beyond concepts. And like we began this with saying, words are tools, concepts are tools. They're signposts pointing at something, but can you see it? And a lot of people can't.
Mm.
And then before I forget, tying into perfection, it's funny because I just made a short that I posted on TikTok and stuff, but it's about sacred geometry. Sacred geometry, right? Exists in everything. I mean, the sacred geometry is pretty perfect. Um, it's pretty incredible. And so I just feel like that ties pretty well into the idea of perfection. And then, of course, when it comes to sacred geometry, ancient, in our ancient past, people knew that energy or like structures, temples, cathedrals, they were all built in such a way that they're like harmonic, you know, because shapes are just they emit energy, they emit certain frequencies. And so when you draw a certain shape or you create a certain shape, it's going to have a specific frequency. And of course, you can create a shape that's very distorted and very off-putting. It's like the difference between 432 hertz and 440 hertz. It's very close on the dial, but the frequency is very different,
Mm.
right? Where 432 is very harmonic, it's natural, it feels good. It helps you to, grow in consciousness essentially. And then 440 is distorted. It makes you feel irritable, even if it's subtle,
Hmm.
aggravated. So, and the system knew that when they decided to retune, all music to 440 instead of 432.
Yeah. I think geometry is a great way to depict this idea of perfection. If you hand draw a circle, you're probably going to be able to see little wobbles in the line. But then if you use a compass to do it, it's pretty damn perfect. Your eyes won't be able to perceive any errors, but they're still there. They're just negligible. Or say like building a house. This is a core concept in Freemasonry. And the symbolism of Freemasonry is you have to find that square because you have to build everything off that right angle, which is, a metaphor for right action, moral action. But in the building sense, it's that if your first angle is crooked, then every other point that you put, pieces of wood and stone together is all it's going to throw off your whole build, right?
Yep.
That's how look how perfect the fucking pyramid is. That's,
Yeah.
thousands of
Yeah.
just
No.
insane stones and it's like laser precise,
Yeah.
perfectly lined up. That is perfection. Just there's no way around it. Real actual perfection.
Yep. Yep. Exactly.
And I just wanted to add too that, I think what you were getting at is that concepts are clunky. They're useful. They're very useful, but they're so broad and so like people that attach too much to that as a framework is it means that their thinking will be clunky.
Mm.
So instead, you want to do these type of thought experiments like I was just talking about, where you try to break the concept. It has its structure, it has its usefulness, but you find those edges and you find where it just completely breaks down, right? Like you were saying, the snow. Snow is an idea. We know what snow is, but there's not all these little words for all these little pieces of it, right?
Mm.
Like the layers and stuff like that. That's
And
another.
the experience of even going out and smelling and feeling the fresh snow, or there's just so it's like, when you're stuck in all these little boxes, what concepts are, and again, very useful, but we have to understand this, you know? We have to go past it regularly. I mean, if not most of our time.
Mhm.
Um, really being able to actually be sensitive to the energy that's around us, the energy that's within us, most importantly, right? But then the more sensitive we become to our own life, our own body, our own mind, our own spirit, really, the more that's going to start to leak out into, you know, the outer realm where we're becoming very sensitive to other people's energy, very sensitive to nature, very sensitive to darkness as well, obviously. It really gets to a point where injustice just becomes so intolerable that you just call it out, right? And maybe you're in a place where you just, it's not appropriate to call it out because you might get fired from a job or you might whatever. I understand that, but I listened to something. I was listening to one of Howdy McCoskey's books called Falling for Truth a few days ago, and he was talking about how um we have to get to this point where we are so we're so in alignment, I guess, just so naturally, not conceptually, right? We've been living the yes, we're so integrated, we're so online that we call out deception and we expose darkness and we really penetrate those realms instantaneously, immediately, right when they are, you know, right when they sprout, right when they manifest. In this world, we live in a world where in society, it's frowned upon to, do certain things, do a lot of things actually, call people out, for instance, right? It's become a lost art to call people out. And on top of that, people that do try to call people out, they're just as ignorant as the people that they're calling out. They have no idea what the hell they're talking about.
Yeah.
So there's not enough people who know this stuff and have the courage to talk about it because they're afraid that they're going to get like black bagged or they're afraid of what their parents are going to think or their family is going to think, which is a whole nother thing. Family, right? This idea that you have to appease your family and please your family and always, be on their side.
Right. Support them no matter what. Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. Because they raised you, which is their like moral responsibility and like imperative as a parent, right? But now that you're older, you're still subject to like being at their every beck and call and going home on the holidays and, subscribing to their beliefs. It's just not to get into another topic, but
Mhm.
there's just so many societal norms that are so wrong,
Yeah.
plain and simple. They're just wrong.
And it's a concept
Um,
around the idea of family that you're getting at.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And I wanted to add in too, another thing that came to me that I think is really key to this whole topic here is this thread of the masculine and the feminine polarities, because the concept is a left brain uh, concept, or like force, or I don't know what a good word would be for that.
It's the container. It's the left brain is the generator of basically structure concepts largely. I mean,
Mhm.
the right brain plays a role, but the left brain is yeah, it's
Right.
like the emitter.
Exactly. And in like geometrically, it's the cube. So in this in my presentation Beyond the Box, I talk a lot about this. I highly recommend people watch that if they haven't. I'll put a card over here in the corner to check that out after you finish watching this. But it's the box and the square. It's the checkerboard, right?
Mm,
And so that doesn't make the left brain bad. It's just that people are shoved into that in a state of imbalance, and that's what makes you a blockhead, right?
right.
It makes you adult. But you need those concepts because that's how you make sense of the world. It's almost like when if everyone ever's taken a high dose of psychedelics like mushrooms or DMT or something, you can reach a point where you're so like that part of your brain gets so shut down that reality just becomes like this Picasso of just like noise, almost like nothing makes any sense because
Mm,
that world has been just completely dissolved temporarily, and that would be no way to actually operate in life. You can't have a productive, functional life without that. So it is absolutely vital and necessary. You just don't want to be stuck in that way of thinking. So it ties into thought and presence. Presence is the feminine aspect of beingness. There's, letting go of attachment to outcomes and forcing anything to happen, or your will or your ego. Those are all masculine properties, which are awesome. They're just not the whole picture. So you also don't want to be stuck in the feminine where you're only present and you never even stop to like analyze your experiences and think, wow, that really went wrong. I wonder what that was about or how I could maybe avoid that situation in the future. You can't do that unless you think about it and analyze it and put little things into boxes like this behavior had this outcome and or even make judgments like that was a bad idea. You need your judgment online to be actually exercising your discernment plus value. See, that's another thing I like to point out is that this very new agey feminized discernment is not the same as judgment because discernment is just, oh, this is this and that's that. And that's the end of the conversation. Um, Judgment is discernment with assigned value. So, yes, this is this and this is good or bad. And that's that, and that's good or you can tell the difference between something that's good or bad. You can also tell there's a spectrum, not that things are just binary good or bad, but like say you're trying to do something and you can look at it, experience and determine, did you have your outcome? No, it was bad. I wrecked my car or I fell down the stairs or whatever. That's bad. And it's okay to say that's bad, even though, sure, I didn't break my leg, so it could have been worse, but it's not an outcome that I would like to have happen again. So maybe I'll be more careful next time, just as a random example. But I'm just trying to put everything in orientation of thought and presence, and that analyzing and judging versus just accept and flow. They're both valuable, and you don't want to live in either of those or and shun the other one. That's where you're gonna really have problems, and yes, that's gonna be bad for you. Have you ever felt curious about the runes, but didn't know where to begin? The runes are a powerful tool for transformation, but without the right guidance, they can feel confusing, overwhelming, or even inaccessible. Maybe you've struggled with conflicting information, not knowing which sources to trust. Or maybe you just need a clear, practical way to start using them in your life. Rune Magic Essentials is a free mini course designed to give you a solid foundation in rune work without the fluff or confusion. You don't need months of study to start using the runes. In just 15 minutes, I'll show you how to tap into their power. Inside, you'll learn Introduction to the Elder Futhark and its ancient origins, how to use Rune Galder, the ancient practice of rune chanting. Discover the first 3 runes, Fehu, Uruz, and Durzaz, to start transforming your reality. This is your gateway into the world of rune magic, and it's completely free. Just hit the link in the description, sign up, and begin your journey today. Unlock the wisdom of the runes. Download Rune Magic Essentials now. And now let's get back to the content.
Right. Yeah. I mean, the concept of good and bad is always an interesting topic as well because I mean, Zen obviously has a lot to say about good and bad. I don't know the story off the top of my head, but there's something along the lines of an old man, wins the lottery, and somebody's like, "Oh my God, that's so great!"
And
And
he's
he
like,
just says,
maybe it is or maybe it isn't. Yeah.
"Well, he just perhaps."
Yeah, perhaps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So and then he, he loses all of his money. He loses all his money, and now he's homeless. Someone comes up, "Oh, it's so sad. It's so bad that you're going through this," and he just says, "Perhaps." And then, he finds out some amazing news, and he gets his entire life back, and now he's like, whatever. And someone's like, "It's so great," and he just says, "Perhaps," right? And just like you talked about falling downstairs and breaking a or not perhaps not breaking a bone, right? Falling down the stairs, we would say bad, but what if falling down the stairs was like, what if that woke him up? What if that led to something beautiful in his life?
Hmm.
What if that was the catalyst for something great to happen? What if he met somebody amazing as a result of that experience? What so it's like understanding how we categorize things is super important as well. Like people have this nasty habit of attaching the word bad to the weather, right? So like it's raining
Yeah.
outside, like, oh, we're having bad weather. That's terrible. Why would you ever say that? We need rain. Rain is
Yes.
important. right?
Yes.
It's necessary.
It's only bad because you wanted to go to the park or whatever.
Yeah, it's bad. Yeah, exactly. And we live in this bubble of comfort. Everyone always has to be comfortable all the time because we're programmed to believe that discomfort is bad, but discomfort is what brings us to our best self. What literally, it forges us. We have to be forged in the fires of discomfort and you could say suffering, even, right? Suffering just unfortunately plays a very vital role in the opening of minds in the
Yes.
world.
Yes.
And when we're always, deflecting it and saying no, 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 well, that's a double-edged sword because we're just bringing more to us. But what do? We go to the doctor and get antidepressants and anti-anxiety meds, and we numb ourselves with alcohol, and we, watch a bunch of porn, and we just escape, 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 escape into our jobs, into our kids, into our marriage, into everything we can, into identities. And that's why we're so obsessed with concepts and identities and words and just labels and all of this stuff because it's just this big hypnotic, illusion that we're so attached to because it keeps us from actually seeing what we are.
Mhm.
It keeps us from our true nature, which is scary because it's unknown and it's, don't go there, don't go there. When reality is constantly attempting to remind you what you are, you're constantly trying to communicate with yourself through, you know, different things in reality, synchronicities, stuff like that. But people don't see it, they miss it. They look at movies in Hollywood and media as entertainment. But what does the dark system do all the time? It loves to put their agendas right in your face. It loves to tell you exactly what they're doing and how they're going to do it, what their plan is. And obviously they have to do it under natural law because they understand natural law and cause and effect. But they also love to fucking do it because they know that your ass isn't going to see it.
Mhm.
Only people like you and I are going to see it. And what percentage of the population do we make up?
Very
It's
small.
it's negligible. There's people that are waking up. Sure, people are always, oh, there's people waking up, but then they still vote for masters. But they still, subscribe to some kind of dogmatic belief or some kind of rigid perspective that holds them back from truly awakening full spectrum, holistic, right? Mind, body, spirit, somatic, right? Emotional. We have to be able to actually we have to do the full work, not just we're uncomfortable, not just read Eckhart Tolle and say, I'm awake now. I got these crystals. I got this life. I do yoga on Sundays and Mondays. I'm awake. I'm enlightened. I'm a shaman. I'm a medicine man. Come to my house. Let's do some ayahuasca. You're not fucking awake at all.
Mhm.
You're just awake within your little comfort zone, within your own little framework. Your mind is playing tricks on you. And the world's playing tricks on you. Society is telling you you're awake because you read the Four Agreements, because you are studying under Deepak Chopra. And these guys are freaking deceiving you too. But really, you're just deceiving yourself. And so the amount of people that are actually truly awake, I mean, where are they? Fully integrated, not scared to go into any realm of understanding, of knowledge, no matter how dark it gets, because they know who they are. They can't be shaken.
Mhm.
People are asking them, dude, let's go to the bar, bro. Dude, let's go whatever. No, I'm going to go study. I'm going to go read. I'm going to go better myself and improve my life in some way, shape, or form. I don't have time for that anymore.
But touch
Right?
some grass too.
Yeah. It's like, it's how committed are you. And there's so many people that, I mean, I've met along my journey, right, that seem to be, on the path and seem to actually have understanding in certain realms. But right when I bring up, self-defense, or right when I bring up certain topics that don't, that make them feel their conditioning feel, threatened. It's not them themselves. I know what you are. I see your heart. I see goodness in you. I do. But you're so full of conditioning still. And that conditioning is convincing itself that it's awake. But when truth comes in and says, "No, bitch, you're not awake," you're, "Oh God, get away from me. You're scary." Just like anybody else, or they fight. "No, fuck you, man." Right? It's like, what's happening there? I thought you were awake. but you weren't willing to go and entertain this conversation about, defending
Mhm.
yourself and your family if it comes down to it, if you have to do that, or actually going into a realm of, I don't know, some kind of conspiracy or some kind of, because those things are vitally important to awakening. We have to understand just how corrupt the system is and just how deep these networks are. If you don't understand it, then how can you have the full picture? And then how can you expose it? You know?
No, Mitch, you're just feeding the negative and you're making it stronger just by even acknowledging it.
Yeah, these vampires,
Yeah.
it's just vampires. They're just people. I mean, it's like, it's almost demonic. I
Mhm.
wouldn't be surprised if there's some kind of parasite, or if people, some people talk about parasites or demons that latch onto people because they're not there. When we're in childhood, we're taught to kill our true selves. No, you
Mhm.
don't be spontaneous. Don't be sensitive. Sensitivity is bad. That all your superpowers go away. What do you think Marvel movies are telling you? What
Yes.
do you think all these movies are constantly reinforcing in you? You are the hero. And we are subconsciously identifying with these. We all have our own favorite superhero,
Well, the
right?
irony is people go and
Spider-Man.
cheer for these people in the cinema and they're living vicariously through their heroism on the screen instead of becoming that and stepping into that themselves.
Yes,
That's what's ironic. It's like the ultimate occult mockery.
exactly. Yeah, you have to embody these archetypes. You have to actually step into that power because that's what you are.
Mhm.
And they're just putting it in front of you to entertain you. And then you subconsciously identify with the hero or the villain or whatever you identify with. It, and then you come out of the movie theater feeling refreshed like you saved the day.
Right.
That's the big trick. You're going back with your popcorn and Coke, back to your car. Hey, honey, that was a good film. You feel like you know what I mean? You saved the day in that. And it's like, no,
No, you just gave money to Hollywood pedophiles. That's all you did.
right. And you just got your energy sucked and you just got distracted for another 2 hours of your life. And they know it. And they know that when they constantly put you are there in the spotlight on the screen, saving the day, doing whatever you're doing, and you don't see it. And it's crazy that they've turned all of these stories and all, they've literally turned us against us,
Mm.
right? And then went a step further and hypnotized us and tricked us into believing that we can never know anything. We can never know our
Yes.
true power. We can never understand that we do have these powers and they shouldn't be super at all. They're just powers. They're just gifts. They're just what they are, really, beyond all the concepts I'm attaching to them. And I did I did an entire presentation on
Mm.
senses and how we're programmed to believe we have five senses. And then when we actually start looking into this knowledge, we realize that we have six senses, right? Third eye, pineal gland, intuition,
Intuition.
whatever.
Yep.
We have intuition. But then when you really get into it, we have like, I can't remember off the top of my head, but it's like 15 or 16 senses, dude. It's like, what do you, it,
It's materialism, the programming. It's putting you in
yeah,
that box. Yep.
exactly. They don't want you to know that you actually have, like eh, literal, like you could, it's just incredible, dude.
How's this for
Really
mind control?
understand.
Where modern times now with pop culture, you hear Sixth Sense, you think about dead people because of that damn movie, right?
Boom.
Your sixth sense is dead. That's what
Exactly.
it's telling you subconsciously. Wow, I never even thought about that, but that's incredible. You're
Yeah.
making some really great points, man. I'm really enjoying this. I hope everyone is enjoying the conversation so far. Make sure and drop the like if you are, and leave some comments as you go, and share your thoughts so we can continue that conversation as well. But I wanted to circle back to the good, bad, and suffering idea because again, yes, the good and bad part is conceptual. But then there is that epicenter that we talk about with natural law, which is the objective wrongs, of morality that is to be acknowledged. But again, that's such a small sliver of the full spectrum of things that could be called good or bad, essentially. But taking it back to this idea of suffering, because suffering can be the greatest teacher. It can be a very powerful catalyst for evolution, change, and growth. But that doesn't mean we should go out and just like make that the goal. It's like, oh, breaking your leg saved your life, like you were talking about. I think I should go break my leg every day. No, that would be bad, even though there can be good outcomes. So, yeah, you're not a masochist. You recognize the value of suffering, but you're not
Yeah.
seeking it out needlessly, like I said, like breaking your leg or something like that. But at the same
Yeah. Exactly.
time, you can choose to go into something where suffering is involved. Like, say you want to start boxing, right? You're gonna have some painful days. You're gonna be fucking sore. You're gonna be swollen, but there's gonna be some serious gains, right? Not just physically, but mentally and
Exactly. Yeah.
spiritually. So like
Yeah.
there's a lot to be said about that as well, of like even having the discernment between necessary and unnecessary suffering, or suffering that's going to have a net positive, like an
Yeah.
actual good ROI that you will
Mhm.
choose to do. um and then that's different from choosing suffering for someone else as well, because that's for you to choose for yourself, but you don't get to decide that for someone else. Like, oh, you're going to suffer for this, but it's for your own good. You know what I mean? There's even exceptions to that. Like, say, your dog doesn't understand why you're hurting it, but you're trying to pull some splinter out of its foot or something like that. You know what I mean? Like,
Mhm.
there's
Yeah.
there's always that little nuance that you can't be too dogmatic about any concept, because it's going to break down. That's a great example of that, is the concept. It's like the saying, all models are wrong, some are useful. That's a saying that I've heard a lot in the investing world, where people have these models of like cyclical charts of business cycles and stuff like that. It's like the chart isn't reality, but it tells you something that is useful in reality. It's not 100% correct, it's not perfect, but some models are useful. And that, I think, applies to all concepts in this bigger theme of what we're talking about here, of just remember that that's all they are. They're useful models, but they're not something that you can put all your weight on, or they're going to collapse on you.
Love the Wizard Factory? Now you can rep the message everywhere you go. Wear your values. Start conversations. Stand for truth. From bold designs to everyday essentials, every piece supports the podcast and helps spread the message. This isn't just merch, it's a symbol of your journey. Tap the link below and grab yours today.
Yes. It's living in the in between.
Yes.
And I bring up Zen. Because Zen, I mean, that's kind of a huge aspect of Zen, if not the biggest aspect of Zen is
Balance.
touch exactly. Balance, going beyond all the things that have held you back from what you are, connecting to life, nature, I mean, just existence itself. And you said you were talking about that little nuance between, right? And I asked the question, well, what is it like to live there? Right?
Mm.
Like so many people, but there's this song by Dave Matthews Band. It's called The Space Between.
Uh,
He's talking about like the space between the tears we cry, the space between bullets in a firefight, you know.
yeah.
Um and even the space between breaths, the space between um movement, walking, right? We don't really think about those kinds of things. We just think about black, white, black, white, black, white. And it's like there's a whole nother reality that we're missing. And that reality just may very well be the backdrop of all of existence itself.
Mm. Yeah.
Extremes meet.
I mean, thinking about it from the cosmic scale, like most of space is empty. Even these, seemingly solid objects of atoms are just mostly empty space in between.
Yeah. And then David Icke in his books, he always basically starts his books the same. Most of his books, he talks about how, and I'm not promoting David Icke or whatever, but I'm just saying, a lot of his books, he talks about how science has proven, apparently, that humans can only perceive 0.002 or 0.003 or whatever percent of what actually exists in reality. So we can only decode such a tiny fraction of what exists, and most of it's like dark matter or whatever.
Yep.
Apparently, it's like 99 or 98 whatever percent dark matter. It's just you can't perceive it. So if that's true, we're blind. There's so much, because everything's just energy in motion, right? It's all just frequencies that we're decoding with our brains, essentially. And that's where simulation theory comes in. That's where hologram and all that stuff holographic universe comes in. But it's fascinating to go into that. And then people will argue, well, you can't really know anything because you can barely see shit. You can barely perceive anything. So
That's what I was going to say is like,
yeah.
And yet, even with such limited perspective, we have such an amazing capacity for wisdom. When we're not just completely with our heads up our asses with, trauma
Ignorance.
in our own ego and all kinds of, programming and indoctrination. Absolutely.
Yep. Yeah, totally. And to touch on just going into how we've become such a programmed, conditioned humanity in general has just become, because society, like Emerson talks about, society itself
There's a
is
concept.
just, it's a concept, but it's also just a decaying force. There's nothing you can do to improve it. It's doomed to fail no matter what, because of the foundation that it's laying upon. What they're building upon is just rotten at the core.
But that can be changed. That's a condition of the concept, not a definitive aspect. If a society is built on real principles that are based in truth, then that society will thrive. That is natural law.
Well, yeah, but what Emerson's talking about is the society that we have today, essentially.
Yeah.
In mainstream society, when you think about it, it's not something you can go in and change. It's something that has to be totally done away with and demolished. And the society that you're speaking of is a society where obviously the foundation, it has to be changed on a foundational level. So it's like you have to rip it out from the roots and then rebuild, right? And with on principles, on truth, morality, understanding these things.
I agree with
And I'm not even going to get into Gnosticism and all that, because then that's a whole nother turn regarding reality and whatever. But childhood, right? It all starts in childhood: programming, conditioning, concepts, getting you locked in concepts. We're going through these schools, 12 years or more of indoctrination, obeying authority. They're all concepts. They're all getting you programmed into this idea that, words, spelling, right? Spelling, phonetics, Phoenicians who helped created language. Probably some interdimensional race created language, really. But we're not going to get into that right now. But in childhood, we're taught, right, to suppress what we are, to essentially kill off our true selves, but it's never truly killed, right? Carl Jung talked about the shadow. It becomes our shadow. And then our shadow grows as we become adults, and then they distract us with alcohol and movies and entertainment and all this stuff until we can't take it anymore. Until we're finally just fed up with, quite frankly, suffering. It's suffering, right? We're just like, why am I suffering? Why am I constantly getting with the same kind of people in relationships, whatever? Why am I constantly, just doing the same things? And right, what is it? It's called insanity. What do they say in the rooms of NA and AA? They say insanity is is doing the same thing and expecting different results.
Yep.
And quite a few people, even today, because the system is so clever and it understands that humans are going to potentially awaken, that they've laid so many traps for people that are awakening in different stages and different levels. Um, and even people who think, again, to kind of like bring this to to an end here or whatever. Obviously, it's no ending these kinds of conversations because they're so incredible, and we'll just pick back up in another talk or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But so, like, I know in my own life, I was just doing the same thing, right? Suffering in all these different ways, lying to myself, deceiving myself, um, playing tricks on myself, and falling for illusions. But I knew I've always had that sensitivity in me. I've always had this feeling that there's something inherently wrong with the current system. I rebelled in school. I rebelled in all of these aspects. And when we get to a point where we're tired of it, where we have to do something different. And if we don't allow ourselves to get captured or compromised by the system, because again, it's laid thousands of traps for you to awaken, like when you awaken, for after you awaken, it's laid thousands
Mm-hmm.
of booby traps for you to fall into, which I have a video about that on my channel as well. Um, and even if we do fall for them, right? Because most everybody who awakens goes to the new age immediately because it's easy. It's right there. Here we are, all the gurus, come to me, the Eckhart Tolles, all these guys. It's very easy to fall into that for at least a month or two. And that's no problem. I feel like that's even a natural thing. It's some good knowledge. It's useful in some ways, being present, all that stuff. Great. But if we don't see the deception for what it is quickly, it can infect our minds. And then we spread that infection to others. And then all of a sudden, we're just in a massive other box with a community of other people who are also connected to the same, poisoned hive mind, right? Under the guise of enlightenment. And that's the most poisonous thing about the new age movement, in general, is not only are they still locked in concepts, but they're locked in a poisoned ideology. It's like moving from Christianity, mainstream Christianity or religion, into new ageism. It doesn't really matter. You're still in the same box. Now you're just wearing different clothes and you're maybe doing different things. Like I was going to church on Sunday, now I'm going to the yoga studio. Or now and then I was doing, you know what I mean? I was reading the Bible and now I'm reading whatever, like,
Yeah.
like some new age. It's like the same shit until we throw it all away. And then the beautiful thing about throwing it all away, I think Gurdjieff talks about there's four levels or four people who are on the path to awakening. There's the yogi, the monk. I think it's like the Vazar or something. I don't know. But then there's the sly man. And the one of them like tortures the body to try to find enlightenment, and it's just like destructive ultimately, and it doesn't really work. One is just seeking knowledge constantly outside of them, building concepts and building up words, and that's not doing anything for them. They can sound really smart, they can sound really whatever, but it's not really, they're not fulfilled, they're not in alignment, they're not truly living it. Then there's one that it's just basically meditating all day, right? It's just head in the clouds, not grounded at all, right? And constantly seeking it through those means. And then the sly man is the true path to wisdom, true path to true understanding. And that's the individual who can go into all those paths and take something from each one and basically construct and build their own philosophy, live within their own philosophy, rooted in morality, rooted in true morals and principles, because we can know, you know what I mean? The laws that govern existence, we can know them, un- even though society tries to program us to believe that we can't know anything, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so the moral of all of that, what I just said, is hopefully humanity collectively gets to a point where they're so fucking tired of the games and the traps and the
And the
bullshit and the
suffering.
lies. Yeah, and the suffering ultimately, that something massive shifts. But I almost want to do this again with you to get into the but, because then the but is there's a whole nother side of this where just, I guess, a sneak peek into the next conversation, if you actually want to do this,
Of
is
course.
the question, can this world even be changed? Or is there something that has compromised it to such an extent to where we're basically kicking a brick wall? We're pounding our head against a wall, trying to wake up a world that isn't meant for us. And this is getting into Gnostic teachings. This is getting into even parts of Hermeticism, just ancient teachings and mystery schools in general. That would be a really interesting thing to talk about, because that's something that I more recently got into a few years ago. Again, I'm not subscribing to anything. I'm not like, I just keep things on the table, and I live with this knowledge daily to see if it works and how it works and resonates in reality. And again, that's going beyond concepts, right? It's taking a concept, dropping it into the sea of contemplation, and living in that contemplation constantly. No matter where I'm at, work, whatever. I'm just constantly pondering the nature of existence, taking knowledge from different mystery schools and traditions and philosophies, whatever, and seeing how they work in my life and developing my own way, right? And that's what I encourage everybody to do.
Yeah, and I think that's something that really describes both you and I, and what you were talking about, the sly man. It's something I've talked about in my presentations of what I call, it's a form of syncretism. You're finding the parallel truths that align perfectly, that don't, that slip between those cracks of concepts and dogmas and the boxes in between.
Mhm.
So that is yeah, that's a beautiful way to wrap this up. It's so interesting you took it there, because that's where I was already kind of planning on ending on that note of like, when will humanity have enough of its suffering to choose to change? Because we're so fucking hard-headed that, God forbid, it's just that we see that there's a better way and just go for that because we're ever on a path for more prosperity and harmony and just expansion into something. No, it's got to be until things just get so absolutely hellish that
Mhm.
even the most calcified person is just like, okay, this is no way to live. What else is there?
Mm.
So, okay, so be it. Like, I'll take any change I could get at this point, and welcome it, and hopefully people like you and I can be there to help show people the way, not tell them what to do, but say, hey, we've been on this path for a while. Here's what's been useful to us, as we've been a lot further along the path than somebody like that that's just beginning is. And that's how I like to look at it is, I don't want to be a guru or um, some kind of religious figure. I just want to be a way shower. That's like, my own life should be the testimonial to show that I've learned some things that have been very helpful, that not only bring me prosperity in my life, but fulfillment too, which is just as important. Doesn't matter if you have all the nice, shiny gadgets if you're not happy. And despite being red pilled and black pilled and all the pilled, I still wake up excited and just eager to give my gifts and express my creativity and my uniqueness, my Loganness into the world. And Mitch, I see you as the same. And I really appreciate all the work you're doing, man. I would love for you to share with the audience, where they can find more of your content on YouTube and TikTok, especially.
Yeah, it's funny 'cause the TikTok thing's pretty new. I was pretty resistant to doing it for obvious reasons for quite some time. But my YouTube is just my name, Mitch Wasson. Check me out. Um,
Those links will be down
and
below.
yeah, and then TikTok also. I think it's. Let me check real quick. But I think it's just my name, or
It's
it's
M
at
Wasson, I
M
believe.
Wasson.
Yeah.
I actually, well, I get into all sorts of stuff. I get into everything basically, just truth in general. And hopefully my TikTok remains intact. I just had a very, very viral video, almost reached 700,000 and it got banned, which is kind of unfortunate. My first banned video. Anyways, TikTok M. Wasson, YouTube Mitch Wasson, Instagram Mitch Wasson, and Facebook Mitch Wasson. You can check me out all those places, but the big ones, YouTube and TikTok and Instagram. But yeah,
Got
I'm
it.
also building a community. This is kind of a new, I'm just going to go ahead and say it to your community, but I'm building a community on School myself.
Oh, cool.
It's going to be called, it is called Veil to Vision. And I'm sure you can find it. I published it. So it's totally free. If anybody wants to join, it's at its totally, I haven't even really built it yet. I just created it, but I have a lot in store for that. And so Logan, you need to join it as well.
Yeah, I'd love to.
Um, but anybody that wants to join that, it's going to be really awesome. We're going to be really applying this knowledge. We're going to be getting into this stuff and becoming, I guess you could say, who we're meant to be here, like becoming the greatest versions of ourselves, mind, body, spirit, getting all into the nitty gritty, doing the shadow work, doing the great work ultimately.
Yeah, I love it. And that's funny because I've not announced but to my audience yet, but I guess I could just go ahead and say that, be looking out for I will be migrating. I'm tired of Facebook and the algorithms and whatever, so I'm gonna move everything from the Facebook group, the Inner Sanctum, and Patreon all over to the school platform. So there'll be multiple tiers. There'll be a free community, and then there will be a couple of tiers that are paid that have a lot. I'll be putting a lot of focus and effort onto those because yeah, it's time. It's time to really start bringing people together, getting them activated, getting them connected with each other and with me, so that we can all share our own, journeys and our own insights and things like that. So that sounds fantastic, Mitch. I will definitely be checking out your group. Go follow this man. He does really phenomenal work. I mean, just this talk was amazing. I thought it turned out really well, and you have a great gift for words. So I appreciate you coming on here, brother, and we will definitely do another segment. But that's going to wrap us up for today. Of course, follow the Wizard Factory on all of the relevant social media platforms as well, especially Instagram, TikTok, and Telegram. Join the Telegram for more like direct content and updates without any algorithm bullshit. And so that's all I got for you. Again, please like the video, subscribe if you're not already subscribed. We'll see you in the next one. But until next time, as always, be empowered, inspired, and encouraged.